Howdy, y'all. Being that my family hails from Uruguay and due to having lived in Houston, Texas most of my life, the love of meat runs deep in my unclogged veins. I mean, half of my blood is chimichurri, let's face it. And in my heart, I'm a gaucha. That's a South American cowgirl if you don't know. Since we just wrapped up rodeo season here, I wanted to dive into the world of carnivore and keto diets to address the studies that often paint meat with a broad brush. Here's the scoop. Not all meats are created equal. It's time to set the record straight about meat. Conventional studies overlook the crucial factor of how the meat is raised. I'm here at B&W Meat Market in my hometown to spotlight the difference and how opting for a clean, responsibly sourced meat can make all the difference in our health journey. First, let's start with the source of your meat. Organic, pasture-raised is the pinnacle of what you need for optimal health. The conventional animal products we eat today are loaded with toxins. When they do studies on meat and saturated fat from animal products being bad for you, it doesn't account for what the toxins do to you. The real culprits are these toxins that build up in the fat of the animal and the denaturing of its products through modern practices. One person I worked with had issues with meat, feeling like a rock in his stomach when he ate conventionally. Once he switched to organic, that went away. So let's take a look at what they've got here, okay? And we'll suss out what I want to buy. I typically will go and look at their brands, and I can't eat chicken, so I go for duck as a replacement. And if I look here, you can see I've got this one that's packed from who knows where. I ask, and they say they don't have the source. But this one from Odd Farms, I actually looked it up, and they are pretty clean. It's not necessarily organic because they're foraging and they swim and they do all kinds of things, these ducks, but they're not raised with hormones, and they're pretty much as close as I can get. So if I've got to get a duck, this is a good one. And it's pricey, don't get me wrong. Do you see that? Anyway, going forward, got a few other things here. We've got some buffalo meat, some venison, and some ground elk. Sorry. Again, these guys, it doesn't say organic. It doesn't say anything much in most of these packages. But if you look at this one does say no added gluten, no hormones, and grass-fed elk. So that's what you want if you have a gluten issue like my son does. So we've got part of this little selection we've got here is going to be good. We can do it. Got things that you got to watch out for. So I have a pork sensitivity. This bacon wrapped venison is not going to work for me. But I am going to take this elk home. I also get meat from a cattle rancher friend of mine who has shared with me his practices and has some of his cattle exclusively grass finished. I was able to get some tongue, liver, and heart most recently. Let me show y'all. Even with fish, it is better to eat wild caught versus farm raised because of this issue. There are some interesting things being done with farm-raised seafood, however, that I should mention. Some fish farms have methods akin to hydroponic farming, where they can be on par with wild caught. Just make sure you research your sources. I came across organic mussels in a store one day and thought to myself, surely this is just a marketing ploy. I was pleasantly surprised that they could produce it in a way that was even less toxic than in nature. I'm allergic to chicken, but I can eat other poultry. My son Holden is sensitive to chicken eggs, but he can eat duck and quail eggs. We develop these allergies and sensitivities when living in toxic mold. I have a dear friend who developed sensitivities to beef also after having been exposed to mold, so he just eats bison instead. One catch is that he also has a gluten sensitivity, so he has to ensure the bison is grass-fed. Believe it or not, guys, gluten molecules do pass into the flesh and milk of animals. Other proteins from foods do too. When my son had his first set of vaccines at 6 weeks old, he developed colic and blood in his stool. So I went to the doctor and he told me it was likely due to allergies to dairy and soy. I stopped consuming those foods while nursing him, and those problems went away. This just highlights the need to be aware that any condition that hyperstimulates the immune system can cause allergies and sensitivities. Let's talk about the carnivore and keto lifestyle in a way that empowers us to make informed choices, shall we? I'll be sharing insights, busting myths, and exploring the benefits of a diet that aligns with Southwestern roots and Uruguay's rich meat culture. One of the most recognized proponents of the carnivore diet, Mikhaila Peterson, has been vocal about her health journey, particularly her experiences with the diet, its impact on her health conditions, including autoimmune issues and sensitivities. Here's a breakdown of some key points in her story that can unpack why the diet works so well for her and her family. Those genetically sensitive to gluten are also sensitive to mold and vice versa. Not to mention that mold exposure can lead to various health issues, including food sensitivities and allergies. This also translates to inflammation in the body. In her case, her joints were so inflamed that she had to have multiple joint replacements in her early teens. Mikhaila has mentioned mold exposure in the basement room where she grew up, which could have contributed to those health issues and sensitivities. Mikhaila's mother, Tammy, has celiac disease, which is an autoimmune disorder triggered by gluten consumption. However, it's not clear if Tammy ever tried eliminating all grains from her diet, which is necessary for managing celiac disease effectively. Notably, all grains contain some form of gluten, so eliminating wheat, barley, and rye alone, the only ones considered when a product is labeled gluten-free, may not be sufficient for those with gluten sensitivity or celiac disease. As I mentioned in my nursing situation with my son, eating the product of any animal transfers much of the proteins of what they ate to you. So consuming grass-fed meat and dairy is essential for those with gluten sensitivity and celiac disease. Mikhaila also mentioned lacking a gene that creates enzymes to produce histamines, which suggests she may have histamine intolerance. Histamine intolerance can lead to symptoms such as headaches, digestive issues, and skin problems when histamine-rich foods are consumed. In this case, ensuring that the meats consumed are not smoked is crucial for her, and many on the carnivore diet can develop a histamine intolerance if they didn't already have one before. Addressing mold exposure through detoxification and improving air quality could potentially alleviate some health issues and sensitivities. Taking enzymes to support histamine or gluten processing may help manage intolerance symptoms. And for some individuals, addressing underlying health issues may eventually allow for the reintroduction of non-meat foods into the diet. It's essential for those dealing with complex health issues to work with functional nutritionists and physicians to help address underlying causes and manage the symptoms effectively. I started the keto diet at the start of the pandemic, kicking and screaming, I might add. I was amazed to find it was easier than I thought and made me lean towards more vegetables than before. The way it improved my hormones and softened my skin was simply unreal. Although the keto diet is far more about fats, the next major source of one's calories come from protein. There is one exceptional outcome from incorporating more protein in the diet, getting more of the amino acid L-carnitine. Carnitine deficiency can cause numerous ill effects on the brain. Depression and deteriorated cognition are just a couple of ways a person can be affected, according to this article on PubMed. It highlights carnitine's neuroprotective role in the developing brain and recovery of pediatric brain injuries. It is a critical factor in fatty acid metabolism, and we know that the brain is mostly comprised of fats. Studies show that it can prevent cell death in adult and pediatric neonatal brain injury. This was something that my son, Holden, was actually very deficient in when we were first told he was autistic. Now, you may find people speaking against the carnivore diet. There's an article from Dr. Oz that says L-carnitine has a different effect on each person depending on the amount of bacteria inside the person's body. There is a way to turn around the negatives of getting too much L-carnitine, though. You simply need to cut red meat out of your diet for a few weeks, which then starves the bacteria the L-carnitine needs to survive. Carnitine is a precursor to acetylcholine, the main chemical your brain cells use to communicate with each other, and the main one your parasympathetic nervous system, that's your rest and digest part of your nervous system, use to communicate to other organs. This will stimulate digestive processes, dilate blood vessels, slow the heart rate. It's incorporated into glutamine, glutamate, GABA, and lipids for myelination and nervous system cell growth. Acetyl L-carnitine is able to cross the blood-brain barrier. So if you're talking about trying to improve your brain health, then you want to get that supplement if you're not eating meat. One thing to note, when you are eating protein like this and red meat, where you'll find the majority of your carnitine, then you may consider adding a little stomach acid if you don't produce much. A lot of times blood types like A don't produce enough hydrochloric acid to be able to break down meat. So sometimes you have to add enzymes in order to break it down. You can determine this with a stool test or other doctor's ordered tests. The notion that consuming A1 cow dairy can lead to the production of beta-casomorphin 7, or BCM7, and subsequent adverse effects on health is gaining attention in recent years. A2 is the dairy that's in human, camel, sheep, and goat milk, but it's also in some cow's milk. For those like my countrymen who love their dulce de leche, maybe there's still hope they can eat it, provided that they stick to the A2 dairy. The A1 protein is found in the milk of certain Western breeds like Holstein Friesian cows. The A1 protein can produce BCM7 upon digestion. That acts like a morphine in the brain. It may also contribute to inflammation, gastrointestinal symptoms, and skin reactions like eczema and dermatitis. The A2 protein, found in the milk of breeds like Jersey and Guernsey cows, it does not lead to the BCM7 production. However, evidence is not conclusive, and some research shows no significant difference between the A1 and A2 milk consumption. Some individuals might assess their response to A1 versus A2 dairy products and adjust their diet based on personal tolerance and preference. It's worth noting that A2 dairy is highlighted as a good source of carnitine due to its better absorption compared to A1 dairy. Your dietary needs and preferences should always be considered when making choices regarding your daily consumption, however. You ready to saddle up and explore the world of functional nutrition where we expand on these subjects? Hit that subscribe button, share this with your fellow cowboys and cowgirls, and let's ride into a healthier lifestyle together.